Got it. Okay. So recovery is clearly a big piece of this. What else though? Like what else do we need? Like recovery is part of it. We've talked about stress and, the good stress. Like what else when in this conversation about optimal performance, what else is in the mix that when put together, when optimized, it actually creates the performance that we're looking for?
Right. Yeah. I mean, optimal performance is this idea of balancing the stress with the recovery, but we also need to get nutrition right. We haven't talked about that. We need to get hydration right. We need to get the type of training right. Not just like, oh, we're stressing the athlete, but if we're talking about somebody who's a runner, did we do enough long distance versus sprint versus strength work? And what exact paces are we talking about? And how's their technique? And then of course, with performance, we have these other non-concrete factors that are really big on game day: mental toughness, mood, confidence type stuff, right? So on any given day, how you perform, and yes, I'm using the word perform here to range from me, the recreational CrossFit athlete, to an elite at a competition in any sport. How someone performs is going to be the cumulative effect of all of those factors, right? I could be the best in the world at recovering, but if my nutrition isn't right on game day or leading up to game day, I mean, there goes performance, right?
Yeah.
Or even if the recovery and the nutrition and the hydration, that's all dialed in, but my mental game is shot, there goes performance. I mean, performance is kind of this amalgamation of all of these things, and we know that to be true. Some of these factors, particularly mood and confidence, just like the feeling, right, they happen in the moment and they happen in ways that we can't always predict. And so this is what's hard about predicting performance, is there's so many factors that are coming into play here. And there's been lots of well-prepared athletes on paper in terms of recovery and training rate, volume, and all that stuff, but they haven't performed well because there's just so many more in the moment factors. And I'm fine with using this analogy for the recreational athlete too, because even though our stakes are low, I believe we have these same factors coming in each time we go to do a workout. Pull-ups are a lot easier if you just got a promotion or you slept really well, right? They're way harder if you just had an argument with your significant other. So how good the workouts feel, how you're training and going, even at the recreational level, are affected by these ups and downs in life, and potentially even more so because they just have less of kind of this training experience to back it up. I was looking at this really cool study that was looking at kind of between events of elite athletes, they only have this swing of maybe 1% to 2%. Well, that would be nice if every time I ran a mile, I only had a 1% or 2% swing. And that's just because they've been through so much training. Now they're at a stage where it turns out that swing of 1% or 2% matters, so it's still a big deal. But we're definitely going to be affected by all of these other things, just like elite athletes could be on quote game day, even if that's just us showing up at the gym.
Yeah, one of the things that pops in my head is like these are the kinds of things that like technology just like is ripe for, right? Like all these things we can measure. Even admittedly, we can't measure all of it, but like lots of what you just said, like you can start to figure out, well, what is the metric here? And if I can figure out the right way to measure that metric, and then I can figure out the right way to balance them across, these 5, 6, 7, 10 different, measurements, then, now I've got something, right? We can start to maybe be predictive, right? Which is one of the things I think we're trying to talk about here. So just talk to us a little bit about where that role of technology is, what it can do, maybe what it can't do. And if our ability to measure something means that we should be measuring it.
Yeah. I mean, I think there's a lot of health tech out there. And I think the idea is, okay, well, there's a lot of factors that come into play. We'll just keep making the algorithm more complicated. We'll just keep tracking all of those factors. And it even happens within recovery that, HRV is not the only thing of recovery. We could look at sleep or soreness or oxygen saturation. That was a big one. I actually did this years and years ago. A company wanted to do a sort of a predictive thing as well with taking your oxygen saturation in the morning. It's not being used right now that much that I know of, right? But so we can break recovery down into lots of different factors, and then we can track on all these other things, your nutrition, your hydration. There's coaches that look at kind of by the mood, how your mindset is doing. They track trends. And my opinion is, yeah, go ahead. Make the algorithm as complicated as you want. Make it as robust as you want. I think we're getting a better prediction than not doing that, than just looking at one factor per se. But I still think we're kind of missing it. We're just tracking on all these correlates to performance when in reality, there is still something that happens as a result of real-time factors that cannot be predicted by looking at retrospectively, right? And that's sort of my problem with a lot of the health tech apps is they're retrospective. They're not in the moment. Yes, we certainly can learn by looking back. Of course, that's some of our best lessons, but we don't ever relive those same moments again. We live new ones, right? And so looking at yesterday doesn't necessarily mean that I know what my confidence is today. Looking at yesterday doesn't necessarily mean I know what my hydration is today. Looking at yesterday's volume doesn't necessarily predict my fatigue today. And so our in the moment performance is something that cannot be predicted retrospectively. It's correlated, but in my opinion, it's not predicted to any better degree than just your performance, your actual day to day performance, I believe is the best marker to predict future performance. Why? Because it already is bringing together all those factors. It's already showing us, okay, what's the effect of your sleep, your recovery, your hydration, your mood, your confidence, your motivation on the thing that you care about, i.e. your performance. Now, the problem with that is it's a lagging indicator, right? It's still, okay, well, I just did it and now I have to look back at it. It's not predictive. But it's still a better recap than all of these kind of breaking down the components into their individual pieces. And, you know, I think what's also good to keep in mind is we don't want to just look at our last day's performance. We actually want to look at the last few days' performance. Performance, I think, as we mentioned in the last podcast, it doesn't just always go up, unfortunately. Like every time I do pull-ups, like I always just don't get more, unfortunately. So we don't even want to make training decisions based on one workout alone. And that's why the fact that we can look back to a handful of days, I think is going to be our best indication of how performance is going versus trying to look at any of the pieces like recovery that go into performance.